Update, brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300. Manx Radio's Update with Andy Wint.
First of May, good evening, it's 5:30. This is Update for Thursday, 21st of September 2023 from Manx Radio. 30 minutes to look at the latest news on the island. Background to that news with sport and business and Sea Watch and travel updates and the newsmakers in person. This evening, 3 big brownfield sites that will be built on the island. Strangles is here. Steam Packet doesn't want an obsolete vessel. It's Organ Donation Week at a very poignant time, and footballer Sean Jackson will be back in action in a few weeks' time.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
First of all, at 29 minutes ahead of 6 o'clock, the Update News headlines. First to my Simon Richardson.
First to my, there's years' worth of additional study required before we'll see wind farms up and running on the island. That's according to Manx Utilities. Today it's been discussing the transition to greener energy and renewables at the Isle of Man Government Conference. The Steam Packet says it doesn't want to commit to a new or second-hand high-speed vessel, which uses technology that could become obsolete very quickly. New details about possible amendments the company would like to see to the Sea Services Agreement have been revealed as a result of a Freedom of Information request. And 3 major schemes have been approved in principle for funding from the Island Infrastructure Scheme. They would see the redevelopment of 3 key brownfield sites across the island, including the former Villiers Hotel site on Loch Promenade, supported by private sector investment of nearly £50 million. Further afield, the Bank of England's left its interest rate unchanged, but its governors warned it's very, very premature to talk about cuts. It's the first time in almost 2 years the base rate hasn't been hiked, and follows surprise news yesterday of a further easing of UK inflation. 5 people have been charged with spying for Russia in the UK. The Bulgarians, who live in London and Norfolk, are suspected of conspiring to gather information that would be useful to an enemy. And footage has emerged of the Labour leader telling a conference, "We don't want to diverge from the EU." Sir Keir Starmer made the comments at an event in Canada on Saturday. Those are the headlines. More news at 6.
Man Benham. Contact us by phone, video call, email or face-to-face. We're happy to connect with you. Manx Radio Weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Jeremiah, thank you, Simon, from the Ronaldsway Met Office. There's a strong wind warning, but that's for tomorrow. Strong winds tomorrow, state of sea slight, and moderate tomorrow morning. The weather, well, nice, dry, some late sunshine, a moderate west-southwesterly, and showers perhaps later on this evening and tonight on a fresh breeze. Overnight minimums 11 degrees. For Jehenya, Friday, showers first thing, clearing to sunny intervals by lunchtime. A moderate to fresh west-northwesterly, daylight maximums 15 degrees. Down to 10 Celsius through the night into Jasan. Saturday, dry and cloudy in a moderate northwesterly, backing southerly and picking up to 16 degrees. Sunset 21 minutes past 7 tonight. The late low tides 14 minutes after 10. High water 20 past 4 tomorrow morning. Sunrise 3 minutes after 7. Low tide tomorrow is at 29 minutes to 11. And watch out, there's a delay on tonight's EasyJet Gatwick.
Manx Glass and Glazing can produce bespoke splashbacks for your kitchen in any colours. Speak to the team on 674 573.
Well, it's been a long time coming, but 3 major schemes have been approved in principle for funding from the Island Infrastructure Scheme. They would see the redevelopment of 3 key brownfield sites across the island, including the former Villiers Hotel site on Loch Promenade, supported by private sector investment of nearly £50 million. The Treasury Minister, Dr. Allinson, says the proposals mark an important milestone. Simon's back with the detail.
2 of the applications will provide 1,000 additional homes by the end of 2026. The schemes involve 55 apartments in Lake Road, Douglas by Duluth Limited, part of the Dandara Group, and 38 apartments on the former Ocean Castle Hotel site in Port Erin by Tevere Properties Limited. The third proposal through the scheme is for a major redevelopment of the former Villiers Hotel site, with a mixed-use development proposed by Tevere Properties, including over 80,000 square feet of commercial, retail and leisure space, together with high-quality public realm incorporating a new revised civic square Square and new 80-bedroomed hotel. Tim Johnston, Minister for Enterprise, says that by breathing new life into neglected spaces, the scheme not only addresses the pressing issue the island faces, but also demonstrates government's commitment, as outlined in the island plan, to create a more vibrant, sustainable and inclusive future, with towns and the island's capital at the heart of the development, enabling communities to thrive.
A case of Strangles has been detected on the Isle of Man. It's a highly contagious upper respiratory infection that attacks horses and other equines. Here's Chair of the Manx Horse Council, Raymond Cox.
It is a very contagious disease, and that's why we treat it with a degree of respect. Usually very mild symptoms, but they can be more severe. High temperatures, not eating, a cough, perhaps a snotty nose discharge from the nose, and then classically swellings underneath the jaw of the lymph nodes. The most common transmission is horse to horse. That's the most likely transmission. So one horse touching another horse, spreading the bacterium from their nasal passage. So that's the most common form of transmission, direct contact. However, there is indirect transmission, and this can be from, say, a horse owner. Their horse has got strangles. They're handling their horse, particularly around the head, and then the next thing is they go and handle the next horse. To be clear, we only have had one identified case at the moment, so only one confirmed case. Now, this is in a small livery yard, which means that there are potentially another 20 in contacts, and that is the concern. But to be fair, the owner of this yard and the owner of the pony are being very community minded and public spirited minded insofar as that they're saying, let the information go out, because with good information you can make good decisions. As we found with COVID, because there was so many unknown things, people acted irrationally. With this strep, we know everything about it. There are no surprises about this bug. So therefore, with that knowledge, we can enforce good biosecurity, we can enforce good disinfection, and we can just shut it down. But to be clear, only one identified case, and that was last week.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates, advising businesses and families since 1949. Visit simcox.com or call 690 300.
The steam packet company is considering shaking up the fleet and says it doesn't want to commit to a new or second-hand high-speed vessel which uses technology that could become obsolete very quickly. New details about possible amendments to the company and what they'd like to do to the Sea Services Agreement have been revealed as a result of a Freedom of Information request. Here's Siobhan Fletcher.
As we reported in August, the Department of Infrastructure is reviewing a request from the steam packet to replace the Ben McCree with the Arrow as the fleet's backup vessel. Now, emails from the DOI appear to show the future of fastcraft services to and from the island could also be up for review. They show the steam packet hopes to extend the lifespan of the Manannan and potentially dispose of the Ben McCree or charter her out and bring her back during key events. One email also reveals the DOI has been discussing dropping the fastcraft service in the future due to emission issues and costs. The Manannan has served the steam packet since May 2009 and is due to be replaced by a fastcraft or fast conventional ferry by the end of 2026 under the SSA between the company and the government. In one email, Director of Harbours David Guberman refers to the company's fleet strategy and how this will have implications for the SSA. In another from August this year, Mr Guberman says the company was looking at extending the lifeline of the Manannan. He also confirms no variations to the SSA would be agreed prior to the 1st of June 2024, but he adds he wants to start work on the variation request now. The steam packet company says it takes its responsibilities to its stakeholders under the Sea Services Agreement very seriously and strives to provide safe, reliable and sustainable services to and from the island all year round.
The Infrastructure Minister and the Manx Utilities Energy Transition Lead were heckled during an interview on wind farms at the Isle of Man Government Conference today. Comments were directed at Tim Crookall, MHK, and Lizzie Riley as she explained the proposals for on-island energy generation are a work in progress.
So this is the very, very first stages of our programme and any project that we're delivering, specifically the wind farm we're talking about here. So there is a year's worth of additional study required, public engagement consultation, and we're working on that going forwards.
And we can hear some of the feedback behind you that you're getting. It does seem like a really challenging thing to try and persuade people and get across. Do you feel up against it?
Yeah, I mean, it is challenging, but at the end of the day, we are here to deliver what has been set for us by the Isle of Man government, and that target is to deliver an onshore wind farm by 2026. So inevitably that's got some technical challenges to it as well, but we're working as hard as we can to get that target delivered.
And we're talking about those sites that have been narrowed down. Do you feel confident that it's possible?
It is possible, and that's what the impact assessments will tell us now in going forward, whether it's possible on those two sites. If it's not, as I've just said in the room, if it's not, we have to stop there and find somewhere else or come up with something else. But that's the system, and that's the planning system we're going through.
At the end of the day, we've got a team of people who are just trying to do their job at the moment, and we're working as hard, as I said, to deliver these targets. We're trying to give people as much feedback as we can, but while we're doing that, things are going to take time. So please bear with us. We'll do as much as we can. There'll be a lot more information coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Sea Watch with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company.
Mothership Ben McCree left Heysham at 3:01. She'll be into Douglas just before 6:30 this evening. Onto the linkspan, and it's the Manxman out tonight, 8:15 from Douglas to Heysham, arriving there around midnight. The overnight departure's 2:15. Manxman back tomorrow morning at 6. The high-speed craft Manannan left Douglas at 2 o'clock. She's in Liverpool right now, onto the linkspan by the Liver building. Departing this evening at 7:15, back to Douglas at 11:15. Tomorrow morning's departure, 8:45. Ben McCree heads to Heysham.
Like the Steam Packet on Facebook for the latest sailing information.
After a challenging time and spending nearly a year out injured, Isle of Man resident and England amputee international squad footballer Sean Jackson says he can't wait to get back to playing the game he loves in a few weeks' time. He explained to Manx Radio he once again has big ambitions going into next year when he returns for club and country.
It's just his excitement. Obviously, it's been close to a year since I did the injury back in October 2022, and it literally is. I love playing football, and I just can't wait just to get back and join up with obviously the Everton boys and back playing with England as well in quite a big year we've got coming up with the Euros in June. The biggest part of it is the mental challenge of being away from obviously playing the sport that I love, being away from the lads. I think the best thing I've done is still be a part of it, so I've done my best to get to all the training camps. I've still gone away with the lads to Poland, to Dublin and places like that, and I think sort of being around the supportive network in terms of the staff. So we're lucky to have a psychologist within the England setup. I've worked with Rich Seal at Sports Aid back home on the island, and people like that have really helped me sort of remain focused, and like proper thankful to everyone that supported it, because it's just the worst thing for a footballer to be told you've got months out of playing it. I'm hoping I've got some dates towards the end of October that I'm hopefully back training with England. Unfortunately, I've just about missed the league here in England, and which was again a really good year for Everton. They managed to win the league and the FA Cup, so I've just missed out on the league. But the next couple of months we're back with England and sort of preparing for the Euros in June. Again, it's another big year for us. Just having the success in Krakow, we went away and did the Nations League and we won that, so that's sort of put us in a really good place going to the Euros in June. It's a good squad that we've got at the moment domestically with Everton. The success that they've had this year is qualified for the Champions League next year, and that'll be another good experience to go out and play obviously the top sides across Europe.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
At 16 minutes before 6, UK fashion retailer Next today lifted full year guidance for the third time in 4 months after better than expected summer sales, and said inflationary pressures should ease next year. Next said looking ahead to 24-25, it's likely that inflationary pressures on selling prices and operating costs will continue to ease. The company said it unveiled a 4.8% rise in half-year profit to £420 million. And for a full daily market report, go to ramseycrookall.com. Media mogul Rupert Murdoch is stepping down as chairman of Fox and News Corp in America, with his son Lachlan to head both companies. In a memo to employees, he said the time's right for him to take on different roles. 90 92-year-old Rupert Murdoch built one of the world's most influential media empires over a 70-year career after inheriting a half share of local newspapers in the Australian city of Adelaide in the 1950s. He ended up owning some of the most influential newspapers and TV stations in the world, launched Fox News in 1996. It is now the most watched TV news channel in America. He'll transition to the role of chairman emeritus for both firms in mid-November. It comes months after he ditched a plan to merge Fox and News Corp, which would have reunited two major media assets. Of course, in Britain, in 1989, Rupert Murdoch launched Sky Television and, of course, owned The Sun, Times and Sunday Times and the defunct News of the World newspapers.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European markets were lower amid a raft of inflation rate decisions from central banks in England, Turkey, Sweden, Switzerland and Norway. The dollar hit its strongest since March. Oil rebounded after a Russian ban on fuel exports snapped focus away from Western economic headwinds, and gold extended its decline, weighed by the surge in the US dollar and US bond yields. The numbers now from Ramsey Crookall, reporting at the close in London. The FTSE 100 down 0.7% at 7,678. The DAX in Frankfurt down 1 3/10% at the close at 15,576. A short time ago, New York City, the Dow Jones Industrial down 0.5% at 34,266. The Nasdaq Tech Stocks Index down 1 2/10% at 14,794, and the S&P 500 in Chicago down almost a percentage point at 4,359. In the exchange markets, the British pound sterling trading at $1 22.9 cents, €1 15.3 cents, and 23 South African rand 21.6 cents. In commodities, gold's down 0.6% at $1,917 per troy ounce, and a barrel of Brent crude up 0.5% at $93.63.
You've got an investment plan?
Yeah, Mike set it up.
But don't you need loads of money to do that?
Not this one. It's called Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, and you pay in monthly as little as £100. So it's like saving regularly, really helping us invest in the future. For a house, well, the kids' education.
£100 a month? I could easily do that.
You should. The sooner you start, the better.
Invest in your future with as little as £100 a month. Shearwater from Ramsey Crookall, the island's investment specialist for 75 years. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Students at King William's College were live on Manx Radio today and expressed their concerns about the Manx government's approach to green energy solutions. Proposals for onshore wind farms have left youngsters questioning whether the approach is contradictory.
I think offshore, because at the minute I know the onshore wind farms they're trying to do. I think there's one up in Eristane that they're trying to do at the minute, and I know they're trying to tear down a plantation in order to do it and build it on heathland, which, going at it like that, actually negates what you're trying to do. Whilst it's a brilliant idea, and as an island, because we're such a small community, trying to lead the way in terms of the environment, I think is a brilliant thing to do. But I think there's also the point where we need to consider the environment that we do have now as well.
The island has that natural beauty that you wouldn't find in the UK. And I think if you were to go and put some wind farms in the middle of Archalagan Plantation, I think it would ruin what the island has to offer.
I know it talks about offsetting carbon pollutions, but wind turbines don't last forever, and eventually the lifespan runs out, and there's just massive metallic structures that need to be disposed of. And I know that that's not free, that's not super easy, and that itself will give carbon emissions. With the waste from the wind farms, obviously the offshore wind farms are going to have the same amount of waste disposal that's going to have to go on, and with the mining for gas and all that kind of things, it doesn't, you're kind of going against what you're trying to fix.
Update brought to you by Simcox Advocates. Manx Radio Sport.
Fast am I, Rob Pritchard.
Fast am I. Good evening. The Special Olympics Isle of Man squad bagged a flurry of medals during the opening day of this year's Gibraltar National Games yesterday. Following last night's opening ceremony at the Lathbury Sports Complex, it was the Isle of Man's athletics team who got the action underway. During the evening, there were 2 gold medals for Ethan Butler in the 200 metre and 100 metres, whilst there was also gold for Jamie Hardy in the 100 metre contests, with Hardy also securing a silver in the 200 metres. The night was rounded off with more medal success as the the Isle of Man's 4x100 metre relay team took gold in their event. Today, so far, the football team secured bronze in their competition earlier today, whilst the bocce competitors began their event in the last hour. The games as a whole are running until tomorrow. In motorsport, Manx rider Nathan Harrison has described his latest outing on the BSP calendar as a massive step on his road back from injury earlier this year. The Oncombe-born competitor was involved in the 2 National Superstock Series races at Alton Park last weekend, securing 2 top 20 finishes in the process. A 19th place finish on race 1 was followed by Harrison securing 18th spot in the second race. In the first of those events, Harrison managed a new personal best at that track of 1 minute 38.3 seconds. Overall, he's described the latest event as a good confidence boost on the back of a tough year. Harrison missed this year's TT and Southern 100 road races due to injury, but returned to the mountain course for the 2023 Manx Grand Prix in the Classic Superbike class. And in football, Corinthians and Union Mills got their new campaigns in the Isle of Man Under-18s League with victories in the latest round of fixtures at the Bowl last night. Corinthians faced a Colby side which held their opponents out until half-time, before a blistering second-half display saw Corinthians take an emphatic 9-0 win. Meanwhile, Union Mills, last year's league runners-up, took a big scalp in their curtain raiser, beating last season's Youth FA Cup winners Laxey 5-2.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Inbound at Ronalds Way, the 10 to 8 Loganair from London City on time, 5 to 8 Loganair return from Liverpool, the patient transfer plane is on time, the 5 past 8 EasyJet from Manchester inbound showing on time, the 25 to 9 EasyJet from, you guessed it, London Gatwick, currently 10 minutes late at 8:45. Outbound 6 o'clock Loganair to Liverpool on time, 25 to 9 EasyJet to Manchester's on time, and the 5 past 9 EasyJet returning to Gatwick currently showing outbound at 9:15. Temporary lights back on at Victoria Road in Douglas at the Falconcliffe Terrace junction for water main work. Falconcliffe Terrace is closed for the work. Hillside Avenue between Hillside and Circular Road in Douglas closed for adjacent office window replacement. Mona Drive's closed in Douglas between Empire Drive and Victoria Road for sewer lining works. Ballabruey Drive is closed between Devonshire Road and Ballabruey Way for gas main work. The Newcastle Town Road, of course, is closed between Spring Valley Roundabout and the bottom of Richmond Hill for resurfacing. In Ballasalla, lights on at Douglas Road at Balfane Roundabout for service disconnection. Temporary lights at Berlig Bridge in St John's, and Ballagorn Road is closed near Ballabeg for ditching work.
H&HMotorcycles.im for all your motorcycle requirements. Southgate Industrial Estate, opposite Quayside Tyres. Call 665646.
People on the Isle of Man have been urged to talk to their loved ones about whether they want to become an organ donor. This week marks Organ Donation Week. In a poignant turn of events, it's been revealed a 21-year-old local man who died of meningitis last week himself was an organ donor. The founder of Organ Donation Isle of Man, Diane Taylor.
After losing my son in 2007, as a family, it hadn't been talked about. So the first that we'd really thought about organ donation was when my son's dad and I were being asked, had we thought about organ donation? Having to make that decision at such a traumatic time, it's the worst time in your life. And now I encourage people to have that conversation, so if you ever find yourself in that position, you already know what your loved one had chosen to do. It is a gift of life, so if it wasn't for donors, then that person would probably sadly pass away, or they'd spend their life having dialysis or, other daily hospital visits, which means they can't lead a normal life. And from the recipients I've spoken to, it literally is, it's life or death when you're waiting for a transplant.
What are some of the more common questions that either of you get when people are considering it?
Can it happen on the Isle of Man? They think that over here you can't, but the specialist teams are flown in from the UK, and later on the retrieval teams, and so the process on the island is no different to the UK.
I think a common thing that people often ask me or say to me is, I'm too old to be an organ donor. And I don't know whether people are aware, but the actual upper age limit for organ donation is 85. Obviously it would depend on that person's medical fitness at that time, how their organs are. And also I think people perhaps would not understand that to actually receive a transplant, that doesn't happen here on the island.
The Isle of Man in 30 minutes. Update on Manx Radio with Andy Wint.
Fast to my 6 minutes before 6. The Isle of Man's made a good impression on some of its tourists. The cruise ship sitting in Douglas Bay touring the British Isles brought a group of American visitors to the Isle of Man. They spoke to Manx Radio's Lewis Foster.
We just got here. We've been here 2 hours.
The weather's gorgeous. It's beautiful, beautiful environment.
Beautifully maintained, charming. We're delighted.
Right. It's very clean. It looks beautiful to walk around.
Friendly.
Yeah.
We seem to see some progressive values here. We were just looking at the assisted death and
more so than the U.S.
Yeah, which is wonderful.
I can't get over how not developed, but how well things are run. This is a island of 84,000. That's the size of our county that we live in, Missouri. And our county government is not near this extensive, nor are we have county park services and so on, but this is running the whole government. You even have your own Manx Sterling. It's amazing. Very impressive.
It's a great place. I would like to move here, but it's too far from my wife and my children. But it's a beautiful place.
That's it for Update tonight, compiled from the resources of Manx Radio's news department. Thanks to newsreader Simon Richardson, producer Beth Espy. Judith Lay is here after 6 in the archive room. The greatest hits with Mike Reynolds at 6:30, and I'm back tomorrow, Friday at 5:30.
WINT.